Good evening, everybody. Good evening indeed, and welcome to Absolute Sim Racing, and welcome to the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup, the US Championship, powered by Race Anywhere, Sim3D, and Go for the Gap. My name is Chaz Draycott, and I'm delighted to be here for the first round of the season, alongside Austin Belkey, who's going to be joining me in the commentary box. Austin, it's a new championship, plenty of new names and faces, I'm sure, for the pair of us, but plenty of phenomenal racing about to come our way here at the Hockenheim ring.
Yeah, that's certainly right. Glad to be here with you, Chaz. I view this whole new series as basically just a way for these guys to showcase their talent a lot more than they were before. You know, they're all driving the same cars, so there's no advantage to one car versus another. It's all down to what kind of setup you have underneath the hood of your vehicle and then what kind of talent you have behind the wheel.
Certainly is, mate. Certainly is. Good way of putting it, indeed. Now, we must admit, everybody, at this current stage in time, you will notice we do not have any graphics on our screen at the moment. There are some server problems with the software that we use behind the scenes, which the guys are working on getting fixed as soon as possible. So we will just be looking at the cars as they are at the moment. We've got a number of them in the pits, a number of them out on track. And to be honest, I cannot wait to see what these cars do. I've actually been fortunate already enough this year to see the Porsche 992 on iRacing, not in the real world, race around Hockenheim, and I can tell you that it is an absolute joy to behold, to watch these cars here. It's been a very welcome addition, to be fair, at this point, hasn't it, Austin? This car obviously used to be an amazing car anyway, the Porsche Cup car on iRacing, one of the very best, but this new iteration, apparently it's more easy to drive in most ways. Have you had much chance to get behind the wheel?
I haven't, no, but I do completely understand the challenges that, were around with the old car. You go to brake to get in the corner and it wants to turn around on you. Very hard to drive, but these cars, just as racy as the old ones from what I've heard, and they're a lot easier to drive, like you said.
We look at the moment at Jonathan Ouellette, or Ouellette, as it may be, the Canadian driver, 5th at the moment with a 1 minute 39.31. Fastest is Dino Filippa for Auris Racing at the minute. He's followed by Justin Rame in the Alpine Stars Geodesic racing car, and then Bruno Carnero in the Pure Sims esports car. He leads a pair of those cars. Caden Bean is in 4th place. We have the 3 classes for you this evening as well. We have Pro, Pro-Am and Am. Jeremy Littleton, who we had a quick glimpse of in the pit lane there, the massive queue of cars in the pit lane, currently fastest in Pro-Am. Dean Timms is 2nd for Eclipse Racing Team, and Chris Long is 3rd. Errol Urexoy is currently 1st in the Am class. Stephen Vida is 2nd in the Am class, and Eric Kulaga is currently 3rd, 20th overall. We do have a very big grid, though, this evening, Austin. 37 cars currently in the session. Plenty can happen within those 3 classes over the course of the race that we're going to have.
Yeah, for sure. These cars would be a lot of fun just with how many battles there are in each spot on the racetrack. So we're always going to have guys fighting for position, but there's not just one winner. There's not only 3 guys on the podiums. There's 3 winners. There's 3 different podiums in the 3 classes, and that's just basically going to pretty much amplify the amount of racing we had, the intensity for each one of those different victories by 3, because now we've got 3 battles going on. There's going to be so much racing all around this circuit.
And a lot of the racing that I've seen already in these Porsche 992s has been from the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship. They have a real world series, and now after lockdown and everything, they have their virtual series, and they usually use a heat racing format. So they have a certain amount of drivers progress from a heat into the following race, and then a consolation, and then a final at the end of the night. It's all very crazy, to be honest, but to have just one solid race like this, like you see in the real world Porsche Super Cup, as Harry Wills goes for a bit of a ride into the wall, it's great to have one solid race, because the drivers then have to use a bit of a different tactic. You have to look after the tyres, you have to think about fuel, and to be honest, it's not the easiest thing to do. We do have to go straight to the grid, though, and we will read it off as is. Unfortunately, still no graphics like I mentioned. John Botefer is currently on pole position. Thomas Marino alongside him. It's Justin Rame and Harry Wills. Jonathan Ouellette and David Menino is on row 3. A lot of new names for me to get used to here. Sean Ryan and Caden Bean make up row 4. Rounding out the top 10 is Spencer Marsh and Bruno Carnero, with Dino Filippa 11th. Jeremy Littleton is 12th, ahead of Chris Long and Stephen Martinez, with Jay Steffi in 15th. Then it's Dean Timms 16th, Andrew Rasmussen 17th. 18th is John D. Cooper. Taylor Lane is 19th, and Bruno Alcaraz is in 20th position.
Alex Trevor is going to line up 21st, followed by Errol Uriksoy. He's going to be the first car in the AM category. To his outside is going to be Stephen Vada. Then Gary Brown lines up 3rd, followed by Jason Bridges in 4th. Neubauer lines up 26th overall, followed by Travis Kepler in 27th. Andrew Hewson lines up 28th, followed by Andrew Hewitt. TM Johns, Dan Flora, and Don Hunter are going to be from 30th to 32nd. And then the last 5 cars in the field are going to be Eric Stamp, Paul Perry, Eric Kulaga, Michael Kulaga, and Casey Metzger.
Thank you very much, Austin. The field now led away. It was very nice and tidy there as they had them lined up on what we'll call the pre-grid. It's almost like a dummy grid, as if you'd get in karting, as everybody gets led away. 2 by 2 for a very, very frantic race, I'm sure, here at Hockenheim. We've got 2 of the geodesic cars right at the front. That's Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing's John Botifer and Justin Rain. Very, very interesting circuit though. Hockenheim, of course, used to be one of the very few temples of speed, similar to Monza. It used to be a flat-out circuit through the forest in the good old days when Formula One visited here, but now it's almost like a stadium in itself. Either way.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Austin.
So yeah, very much so, as we see our pro category go down to the front stretch. The leader decides when the green flag comes out, so everyone needs to wait for them to put his foot down on the loud pedal.
Yeah, he certainly left that one, and his teammate benefits from that. Justin Rame's got into 2nd place. He's fighting with Mourinho. There's cars making contact in the background. Sean Ryan has gone around. We'll try and catch the Pro-Ams who are just about to start. Jeremy Littleton in the Gulf-coloured machine on the outside. He's going to also wait and hold it. Hold it, hold it, hold it. He's going to get his foot down now. Gets a fantastic jump on Chris Long. And Chris losing out, unfortunately, there. Just in the background again, you will see the AM drivers coming through as well. Oh, there's a car around.
Actually, a car off right there. Yep, I believe that was Steven Martinez. We'll have to get a look at that later.
I think Jay Steffi was the car that went around in the end. Stephen Vida's absolutely checked out in the AM class. He's disappeared up the road. Completely gone by the time they get to turn 1. Mourinho had a nightmare, though, in the pro class, spinning around at turn 1. But Justin Rame, look at this lead that he's got here, Austin. Botifer having to hold off Bean and Wills.
Yeah, certainly he's got a huge lead. I think that's his teammate right there behind him, the 2 outlets there, 1 and 2. Obviously, though, I mean, this track, you know, it's 2.8 miles, 16 turns. Oh, wow. Actually, another car spun. I believe that was our leader.
Yeah, it was. Justin Rame's absolutely lost the back end there. Let's have a look at what happened. Now the replay's having a bit of a nightmare here. I won't lie to you.
Oh, we've got another car spun around the hairpin. They're actually wrecking all over in the hairpin. That's going to be a bunch of guys in our AM category.
Oh, Justin Rame loses the back end. But yeah, Michael Kulaga involved in that. Andrew Hewitt as well. He's also in the pile of drivers that went around and made a very, very big mess in the AM category. Oh, there's another off there. That's Andrew Rasmussen. He's been turned sideways. God, none of these guys want to even get to the end of the first lap. But at the very front of the field, though, Botifer and Caden Bean right together for this lead. Pure Sims Esports car chasing down the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing machine. Both big names in the iRacing community. And to be honest, there's a lot of bragging rights riding on this. 2 Pure Sims cars in the top 4. Thomas Mourinho, by the way, into the pits now as Littleton leads the Pro-Am class.
Yeah, lots of these cars, I mean, when you get to these high speeds, and, you know, it's so easy to mess up the toe here in iRacing. It's, you know, if you have any sort of damage, you can even get a black flag, a meatball flag, as we'll call it, a black flag with a giant red ball in the middle. That, of course, means you have, you know, damage you need to get fixed, and you need to stop racing immediately to get that looked at right now. But looking at those fabulous Gulf colors, I believe that is Thomas Marino. It
is indeed, yes. Sorry, it's Littleton at the front of the Pro-Am category. Just behind is Chris Long. He's trying to put the pressure on at this stage. We'll go on board with Chris Long. You can see here from sat back inside the car that beautiful rear end on the Porsche 911 992. Gorgeous looking bit of kit. Trying to find his way around at the moment is Chris. Just needs to maybe give it a bit of time. I mean, in a race like this, when you've got a lot of time to make a move here, Austin, if you can stick behind somebody, use the slipstream to your advantage, it's usually better to just try and identify your opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to wear your tires out too fast, too early. Usually the tires, especially on the road cars, they prefer that you kind of take it easy for the first lap or two, really build heat slowly into the tire rather than just shock it your first lap out there. Then, it's going to wear a lot faster if you do that. But, it's certainly always advantageous to size up your competition, see where you can maybe make a move later. And obviously, fortunately enough, we're pretty early on in the season, so we don't really know who the fast guys are going to be, who the guys are that are always going to start in the back of the field. But for the most part, you can kind of imagine, or at least it's a safe bet, to assume that all the guys in the back of the field are faster than the people in the front of the field. So,
Yeah.
you get to someone you start right next to, obviously it's going to be a tight battle, but, at some point, if there's a 3 or 4 car gap late in the season, you kind of know, like, you should be able to beat this guy by at least 1 or 2 spots per race. So you're just kind of waiting for him to make a mistake and clear out his stuff.
Yeah, that's it. And, some of these guys are going to be so close on pace as well. There might be just the odd corner, the odd apex, where they have something different to each other as Meneno goes straight on into the stadium section in car 3. He drops down to 6th position overall. We're looking at our pro class at the moment. Caden actually leading this race right now. Caden Bin, a fantastic job for Pure Sims Esports. They've got 2 cars in the top 3. Bruno Carnero in the final podium spot. He's got Harry Wills, Dino Filippo behind him. We look back to our Pro-Am lead battle because Jeremy Littleton and Chris Long are still right together, only about half a second between them. Alex Traber's then got Taylor Lane all over the back of him in the beautiful Fiercely Forward machine. I've commentated on a lot of Fiercely Forward cars in my time on iRacing. And Stephen Vida, we saw him earlier, by the way, leading the AM class by quite a while, but Errol Uriksoy starting to catch up with him a little bit right now in the Twisted Racing white car. They've then got 6 seconds back to Andrew Hewson. That's quite a gap to have, only a couple of laps in, isn't it, Austin?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it mostly just comes down to, how fast does each of these drivers start? And, as we look into this race here, the faster guys are always going to start in the back, so they're always going to be inching their way closer and closer to the people in the lead. And Errol's constantly been one of those guys that always gets closer and closer. You can see we have a couple drivers right now coming through into that stadium session. I'm glad you pointed that out, too. Back when this place was just a temple of speed almost, where it was flat out, it's very open, wide open corners. You didn't really have to lift much, but anymore it is just like a stadium. Look at all the stadium seating on the side there, all that overhang.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. I was actually quite amazed by another circuit in Europe, the circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. I commentated there this year on Clio Cup Europe and watched a number of the other races, and there are more of these circuits popping up and being sort of developed to be almost like a football stadium, let's say. There's a lot of seating around the edge of the circuit where you can see pretty much all of the track, and the Hockenheim ring is very similar to that. There's a massive, massive amount of vision from any grandstand that you go into, and it really is bang for your buck if you do go and spectate there, because
we've got a little battle for the lead here. Stephen Vada almost gave up the lead to Errol Urich, so he about locked it up into the hairpin turn there. Had to go a little bit wide. You can see right now they're side by side as they go down now into the other stadium section in the back half of the course.
Very, very close together there, nearly making contact. Seen a lot of contact through there over the years. It's not an easy place to get right, is the Hockenheim ring. They go up now towards the Mobile 1 curve and then the hairpin at Sachs curve. But Uriksoy dropping off a little bit just after that sector there, maybe just thinking, right, maybe I don't get my elbows out too much here. Maybe I need to rein it in slightly. But Stephen Vida doing a mega job. Still keeping
this league especially, they want all their drivers to be clean. So if you do something boneheaded, get your elbows out a little bit too far out too early, you are going to be penalized. And these drivers don't want that, especially when you're making a championship run like I'm sure Arrow is.
Yeah, that's it. They need to think long game here, don't they? As David Meneno certainly not thinking long game. He's had a few incidents and a few knocks so far in this race in the number 3 machine. He's got Spencer Marsh about a quarter of a second behind him. Harry Wills 3/10 in front, but there was a bit of a change around just a moment ago. We would go to replay, but unfortunately, due to the issues that we're having with the graphics and so on, it is affecting our replays as well. But we've got so many cars that are all close together. Look at these guys, 3 wide into the hairpin. This is Stephen Martinez, Bruno Alcaraz, and Dean Timms. Dean's down the inside, late on the brakes. Is he going to be the last of the late breakers? They all don't turn in on each other. Avoid contact where possible and somehow filter on their way out. Dean now goes to the front of this in the Eclipse car 46, but Bruno Alcaraz wants a bit of it as well.
Yeah, no, Bruno did a fantastic job just taking up as much track as he needed, and then obviously Den was kind of able to get him with that crossover, and as you can see, it's worked a treat for them. They're probably both trying to pass that third car line. I think that's the number 53 car of Steven Martinez.
Yeah, it's very, very close between these three, but unfortunately for them, they're pretty much bottom of their class at the moment. We've lost 4 cars from the race: Travis Kepler, Thomas Mourinho, Andrew Rasmussen, and Jason Bridges. Those guys currently not running. Either that or they are sat in the pit lane. There's a mistake from Dean Timms, and now Alcaraz is going to try and go through. They give each other just enough room into the final couple of corners. The Sud curver still trying to hang it around the outside. Dean's trying to keep it on the inside. Obviously the tighter, slower line. Side by side down towards turn 1. Then the Nord curve. Is he going to hang it around the outside? There is Bruno. No, he's not. But they both run slightly wide. Oh, Dean's lost the back end. There's contact. Bruno locks it up. Absolute nightmare. And now Dean is somehow defended from Steven Martinez, who won't be too pleased without going on the grass. We need to look back at the very front, though, here, Austin, because it's kicking off once again. Caden just about holding on to this.
Yeah, one of the beautiful things about the multi-class endurance racing like this is every time it gets excited in one category, it's always, either exciting or just about to get exciting in another category. So yeah, here up in the pro category, it's Caden Bin. Obviously, he's been out front since the beginning of this race, led them away from the green. He's followed by John Bodefer and Bruno Canaro, and Dino Filippa is also extremely close to them as well.
Yeah, fantastic train of cars that we've got going on here. We'll go on board with Dino Filippa, see how it looks from his point of view. Into the Sud curve he goes, just using a bit of that sausage curve on the left-hand side. This car, much like its predecessor, seems to just sort of float round corners. It's almost like a kart. The drivers have to really pitch it in hard and then just sort of deal with balancing it on the exit and just making it float through corners. Great to see some of the real pros driving this car on the edge. It's absolutely amazing to see. Sounds wonderful, looks wonderful, and it goes well as well. But this is a very tense battle between these 4 at the moment, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. Just to give you folks at home a little bit of an update, in the same corner where Dean went off last lap, Errol Uroksoy went off a little bit trying to catch Stephen Vada. So currently that gap is about a second and a half right now, but we're still focused on this battle up front for the pro category.
As down the inside goes Dino Filippa. Takes the podium position away, but Bruno Carnero gets a good run on the exit.
Yeah, well, it's easier to keep your wheel more open when you take that outside line, so of course it's just easier to put the power down when you do want to finally get on the loud pedal. Obviously right there it looks like Gino is just a little bit better at putting the power down than Bruno was, so it looks like he is going to be able to take that position away, at least for the next lap or so. But if you are that close, I always am worried, when I take a position like that and it's that close at a hairpin, the dude I just passed is always going to be right there to do it back to me the next lap.
Yeah, that's it. Some of the best racecraft you can have is being able to bounce back from somebody pulling a move on you. It's not always about defending and attacking. It's how you actually make a comeback on somebody trying to overtake you. It's certainly one of the best things in motorsport is how you bounce back from something. We've all seen drivers have bad meetings, bad championships even, and then come back from them, as there goes Daniel Florea. Certainly flamboyant into the hairpin, locks it up, loses 2 places, doesn't want to lose one to Gary Brown, who's just behind him there in the FTR Esports machine. But a lot of switching and changing at the moment, but to be honest, really good driving standards, I'd say. What a send that is, though, by Gary Brown. Get that done.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty incredible to see those guys making mistakes like that. Dave Menendo is one of them, too. Drivers that don't often make mistakes, especially they didn't last season in the GT3 cars, when they could all choose whatever they wanted. So obviously these drivers still just trying to get more and more used to these cars as they race them week in and week out. And I don't expect we'll be seeing too many of these mistakes for too much longer.
Yeah, that's it. As the season goes on and the pressure mounts, sometimes some drivers really step up to the plate. Others can sometimes crumble away. Taylor Lane trying to go around the outside here. Wonderful move that is on John Cooper in the Turnburn Moto car. Now they go back down the Parabolica. The slipstream very powerful down there. John just slots to the right-hand side of Taylor. He's going to try and squeeze him over to the left later on the brakes. Taylor gives him plenty of room. Bit of a wobble and a bounce around on the inside curb here, but Taylor sticking with it. This is exactly what you want to see, but again, looks like John just able to get that power down a little bit more there, Austin, and get that run through into the stadium section.
Yeah, it looks like the inside line is just, really rubbered up a lot more than it usually would be down there. So these drivers are able to put the power down a lot more, a lot faster than we think they should be able to. So obviously I expect that to change as the track gets, obviously goes through some changes. But certainly seems like all the faster guys are making their way up through the field.
Yeah, they certainly are. There's a lot of progress going on at the moment. Biggest mover in the field in terms of overall positions is Eric Kulaga. He's gained 13 spots. He's not going to gain them by going off like that, though. He's got Daniel Florea just about... Actually, that's not Daniel behind him. That is the number 11 car of Michael Johns, who is actually a lap down on him. So he is currently filling his mirrors, but that is not for position. Still, though, for position... The top four absolutely glued together here. Caden Bean just about holding on from Joe Botifer, Dino Filippo and Bruno Carnero. There's a change behind us. Spencer Marsh chucks it up the inside of Harry Wills. Harry's been in the thick of these battles as well. There's all these sort of quartets and trios going on at the moment, Austin. This is the best bit about racing like this, in one-make racing. They all sort of gravitate towards each other, don't they?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All these drivers are driving the same car. It's almost sort of like a NASCAR where you're driving the exact same car. It's just the setup is a little bit different from driver to driver. So at the end of the day, it all just comes out to talent, especially when they invert these fields. So what you'll have is one driver isn't quite fast enough to pass another. In these cars, you just odds are, dirty air plays a factor too. So you have to be, maybe a tenth or two faster than the person ahead of you to pass them. So, you'll have these guys get stuck in trains for a little while, and then eventually, one guy will catch one guy, then it's 3 cars and 4 cars, and at some point it just kind of explodes. Either someone makes a mistake, someone wrecks another car, or someone just, gets through and actually ends up passing everyone. Pass for the lead, though, in the AM category, Errol Uriksoy has just passed Stephen Vada. You can see them there, so... Errol obviously putting on a fantastic performance here today in the beginning of this race. I want to mention too, Eric Kalaga, you mentioned there, Chaz, he made up a lot of positions, but he's not going to make up any more going off track like that. That's how aggressive you got to be in those races to make the amount of passes that you need to make in order to win these races and go out and win a championship.
Yeah, that's it. You need to just find those limits and push to it as hard as you can. And he has certainly done that for now. But we just caught that little moment maybe where he pushed past the limit slightly. But still, he's showing great pace, great persistence. Casey Metzger as well. We can't forget Casey. Him and Michael Kulaga have gained 12 and 10 positions respectively. So they're both making their way through the order nice and convincingly. Harry Wills still having a fight here as well with David Meneno. He's going to go off the circuit, back on, hard onto the brakes. One thing I must point out, Austin, that I love about these cars, as Harry Wills gives that one up a little bit, is the fact that they move around so much. There's a hell of a lot of body language in the Porsche Cup car, and there always has been. It's not quite as bouncy as maybe your usual GT3 car, but in its own spec, it really does move around a lot. It dives down on the brakes, it bounces over curbs. It's a great car to just watch move on a circuit, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's what you said earlier at the top of the broadcast. These things kind of handle a lot more like carts where you just throw the thing into the corner and you kind of deal with the repercussions of either slowing down too much or not slowing down enough after that by kind of just willing it out to the other side of the circuit.
Yeah, that's it. You've really got to carry the momentum in this machine. It's not about trying to carry every inch of speed into a braking zone and then just outbrake everybody. You've got to carry it all the way through the corner. At the end of the day, that's the principle of motorsport, isn't it? You've got to carry that space wherever you can. Errol Uriksoy dropped down our timing screen for a second there, but I think maybe he's having a few internet-based issues here. He's disconnecting.
Yeah, he's just been blinking out every now and again.
Yeah, so hopefully that doesn't affect him enough to end his race. But these 3 cars, maybe even 4 cars if you include Taylor Lane, are the top 4 in the Pro-Am category right now. So in each category, we've got battles for the lead going on that are covered by less than a second over 3 cars. That'll do.
Yep, and every time one driver takes the lead, there's a driver that's faster than them, that started a couple spots further behind them down in the field. So we're going to keep having these battles for the lead in every position up and down the leaderboard all night long as this race goes on. We're currently only 20 minutes into this hour and 15-minute long race. We haven't even made our first pit stops yet.
Yeah, indeed. The pit stops can change absolutely everything. as there goes Jeremy Littleton, a little bit too deep on the brakes there, the Canadian, but he's still in front of John Cooper. Sorry, Chris Long. Chris Long, the one we're looking at now. John Cooper just behind him, trying to carry pace around the outside. Chris goes the long way around, you could say. Down the inside, lovely stuff by Chris. Puts Jeremy Littleton a little bit offline, and that means now that John Cooper's going to try and come through as well. We'll go on the nose cam there. You get a beautiful look at the backside of that Porsche. Looks very, very supple indeed, doesn't it? Through they go into another stadium section. You can see a little bit of trail braking there, potentially, by Jeremy Littleton. It's interesting to see that, because from other leagues I've covered with this car, people have said that you can't really get away with that much because the brakes like to lock a lot on downshifts.
Yeah, for sure. You know, this car is just one of those that it amplifies all the things you need to do in a real, modern day race car. But in this, it's like 10 times more. That's why I say they're amplified. It's easier to lock up the brakes. It's easier to spin this thing out. It's harder to put the power down compared to some other cars. So just really just kind of trains you to be a better race car driver in the other cars that you have to drive.
Yeah, that's why it's always interesting to see drivers in the real world coming through Porsche Cup and a lot of GT championships driving cars similar to this before they go on to bigger series in GT3 machines. It's great to watch because, like you say, it's a proper driver's car. You don't have assists. Well, there's no assists for Sean Ryan. He's off the circuit. He's had a bit of a moment there. You can see the tyre tracks of where the car's been on the grass. He's going to rejoin in the Blue Chew America's car. But what I was going to say is that you don't get assists. There's no anti-lock braking. There's no traction control. It's pure driving, and it's all about the mechanical grip, really. It may have big wings and a splitter and diffuser and all sorts on it, but the aero doesn't do a huge amount on this car. A lot of it is mechanical grip more than anything. That's why it moves around so much. Jeremy Littleton, though, and John Cooper having an amazing battle as there's contact, and Taylor Lane says, thank you very much. I'll have a piece of that. I'll take third. Now, can he take second here, Austin?
I reckon he's going to want to. It doesn't look like he had quite enough of a run out of that last turn. I think right here he's just kind of poking out to see where his braking marker is before he goes ahead and puts the anchor out of his car to turn into the corner. You can see, though, these cars are really jumping all over, especially when we get deeper into this race. I'm almost curious to see if these guys are going to want to take tires. You can see, though, Littleton obviously locking up the brakes just a little bit going into that corner there. Obviously going to hand the position over to Taylor Lane.
Yeah, Taylor takes that one nice and easy. Back at the very front, it's John Boterfer that is currently leading the way in the Alpine Stars geodesic racing machine. He now leads Caden Bin, Dino Filippa and Bruno Carnero. John is actually where he started this race, so despite not qualifying that well, benefiting from the reverse grid is all well and good, but Caden behind him has gained 6 places, Dino's gained 8, Bruno's gained 6 as well, Spencer Marsh has even gained 4, but he's another 6 seconds back from these guys. I think,
well,
to be honest,
that's another thing too. They invert the field based on the championship standings usually, but we only have one championship standing race to go off of where they did the pre-race. So if you had a bad race in that, you could be the fastest driver in the field. Maybe John's actually showing us that right now. But you have one bad race last week and automatically puts you at the front of the field, so everyone assumes you're not that great or not as good as the people starting at the back of the field. But in all actuality, you have just as much pace as them.
Yeah, that's it. We were saying before about how close all of these guys are in terms of their pace. They're all so quick in their own respective ways. And John Boterfer doing everything right at the minute to hold that lead from Caden Bin and Dino Filippa. 2 Pure Sims Esports in this top 4 battle. A team I used to be a part of when it was CQR Club before it rebranded to Pure Sims. So great to see the guys fighting well. Bruno Carnero actually got into the Tag Heuer Porsche Esports Super Cup draft, I believe. Or at least he was in the qualifiers. He did a mega job at getting to that point. He's one of the very, very highest I-rating drivers that you will see. I'll find out what his I-rating is, actually. I did have it up on the screen a while ago. To be fair, out of these guys, Bruno is actually the second highest. Dino Filippa has 7,800 I-rating. Bruno has 7,700. But then the car behind, Spencer Marsh, is 3,900. So, as you often see in league racing on iRacing, Austin, there is a massive difference in I-rating sometimes, but it's not the be-all and end-all, is it?
No, it certainly isn't. I race in mostly league races myself. You know, you get into these league races where it's such a tight-knit group of guys, and you know everyone here isn't just going out to win a race and wreck people who are in their way. So it just kind of makes you, you know, thankful that you have these guys. And of course, these guys, you know, you get off the track. I think a lot of these guys came over from the Race Anywhere Transatlantic Championship, and those guys were already friends from racing together last season, and kind of just spoils the official series stuff for me. And I know a lot of my friends are the same way. It's, you know, we all just kind of respect each other. And even though there's a mutual respect out on track in the official series, it's just easier to come into a race like this and not have to worry about getting wrecked by someone you don't know, because it's a 12-year-old with a hankering for, you know, tearing up some sheet metal virtually.
Yeah, that's very, very true, mate. Very true indeed. There's a car on the inside line there. Bruno has to go around them. Just catches him off guard. I think that was Michael Johns in the sticker-powered esports car. I have had word that there is a workaround for the overlay right now. That means we could be able to get it to show up on our system. However, it's not seeming to work at the moment, as technology would have it. So, I'm afraid, everybody, we may have to continue without graphics even longer. Further down the order, John Cooper and Jeremy Littleton still having this fight here, Austin. These two very bright and beautiful cars, both running very far off the circuit. They're just throwing everything at this at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, honestly, you know, when you can't make the move, you kind of just see how far you can push the limits of the circuit. You know, they do not penalize the off tracks here. I don't think there's an incident limit either, but of course, you know, you do get a slowdown penalty if you go really far wide off the course. So at that point, I mean, it's not like you would expect, you know, you gain a tenth, you get back a tenth. It's almost like you gain an entire tenth and you have to give back a second or two. So very unfair. It seems like the penalties always are, in my opinion. At least I'm sure iRacing, you know, does some weird programming and math to make sure that they are correct, but they certainly never seem like it when they do. I want to touch on one quick thing too. You saw Sean Ryan actually spun off the course going down the backstretch here. I have to feel like he made contact with another car just based on how far he was down the straightaway there.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. You know, it's not rare for a car to dip a wheel onto the grass there at least and then go one way then the other, but you're right, he was very, very far down that straight, so something not quite right there. Maybe he was fouled, let's say. Now we have Errol Yuriksoy right behind Bruno Alcaraz actually here in the privateer machine, a very bright and colourful livery. Stephen Vida still second in the AM class, but right now, Errol doesn't want to get in a fight with Bruno in front of him because it's not going to gain him anything in terms of the championship, is it? But at the same time, he doesn't want to get held up by him. Oh, we've got car off. Oh, Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan having another issue. Dean Timms, I think, is involved in that. Was it, Dean? Oh, Dean Timms is in, big trouble. There's huge damage.
Yeah, Dean Timms, huge trouble. He was just trying to, I think he had just spun out coming off the corner. Going to try and get a better replay for myself here on my own computer. Looks like he just got a little bit squirrely coming out of that turn, spun the car out and tried to stop it. Of course, couldn't put the brakes on fast enough and end up getting hit by, it looks like, Travis Kepler and Sean Ryan. So unfortunately for all three of those cars, I believe all three of their days are done.
It's a real shame indeed. Hopefully we have a better round for them next time out. It's never good to see a race end like that. This is the battle between Justin Raymond and Harry Wills. They're right together through the stadium section at the moment for 7th and 8th position overall. Errol Yuriksoy, by the way, has overtaken Bruno Alcaraz, and so too has Stephen Vida. So a pair of them moving on up through the pack.
Yeah, and that's mostly just, you know, one driver being a lot nicer than they might necessarily need to be. So Steven just kind of realized that wasn't his battle. He wasn't going to lose anything by letting those drivers by. They are faster than him at this track. And that's one of the weird things you got to think about when you do have a multi-class racing, but the cars are all the same. You know, I had the same problem in the last season where, you know, the faster guys in the AM category or Pro-Am category end up catching the slower guys in the Pro-Am or the Pro category. And it's sort of like a battle mentally to say like, well, I should be faster than this person, but they've certainly caught me, so I should probably just pull over. And of course, that just comes into the sportsmanship that these guys have to say, you have nothing to gain by passing me, but I have nothing to lose from letting you pass me, and I don't want to ruin your race. So you kind of just, you don't pull over. There's an art to getting past just as much as there's an art to passing a car effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, that's it. And when you're in a league as well, as opposed to an official race on iRacing, I'm not saying, if you're in an official race, go out and wreck everybody, but when you're in a league, you know the drivers a little bit more that you're up against. You're going to be racing them week in, week out. Every single time that you have a race in said league, you're going to see the same drivers on track, and you get to learn how people behave on circuit. We've all been there in a league race where you get up behind somebody or a driver gets behind you and you think, oh, not this guy, please, no, anyone but this guy, because you know that certain people get in incidents more, or you see certain people that, they'll be better at letting lap traffic through, as wow, Bruno Carnero has a massive slide in the background of our shot there. But you know what I mean, don't you, Austin? There's always drivers that you gain, you sort of create your own reputation for them in your head, don't you, when you're racing them week in, week out?
Oh yeah, certainly. Even my leagues, there's one driver who, I'm only scared of him because, in my opinion, he's a weapon. He's very prone to just, diving the car up the inside of you, and especially in my league, we don't allow dive bombing in our racing just because it is so deadly, and it's not, of course, you want to make a pass coming off the corner, not going into it. Of course, that's on short track racing on ovals where you only turn left. But yeah, so, there's always guys that do that. There's guys that I know are faster than me on a week-to-week basis, so I'm like, geez, yeah, this is one guy I did not want to see in my rear view mirror, but I guess he's going to get past eventually, and I'll just run my line until he can finally make a move and get to my inside.
Just trying to think now, if Dino Filippo could really do any sort of fuel saving here. It's not really a circuit where there's a massive amount of slipstream other than the Parabolica. We've got Jeremy Littleton in the pits. Maybe he's been involved in a few battles and just thinks, you know what, now is the time for the pit stop. We're just about to hit the half-hour mark. He was in 18th place overall. He's now dropped down to 20th. Back out of the pits he goes. Highest placed driver that has pitted so far, though, is Dave Menino, and he is down 5 places from where he started, of course, due to that. But he's 11th overall, 8th in class at the minute. So with this race being so long, it means that we're not going to get everybody pitting on the same lap, are we?
No, because there's 2 pit stops. Of course, we see some of these guys, Dave Menino, obviously, he went in the pits a little bit early trying to undercut his, opposition. Of course, maybe he just felt like at that point, I'd rather just have the same amount of fuel in the car rather than start out with a full load and go to a minimum load in the middle of the race. Of course, some of these guys, too, you can be behind some people and it's absolutely impossible to pass them just because dirty air, it's kind of hard to see where your line is. All your braking points, you like to pit a lap or 2 early, and if you're faster than by a tenth or 2, and you're only behind them by a tenth or 2 on track or something, if they don't pit until 2 or 3 laps after you and you have clean air, you're going to come out and actually end up passing them, and it was relatively a path on pit road, as we see again this battle for, I believe, the top 3 places in the pro category is still very fierce. You can see these guys still fighting for position with one another. Odds are if I'm Dino, I might want to pit here in the next lap or 2 and just elect to do my pit stops a little bit earlier. It's not going to hinder them too much. Of course, this isn't with Formula One where these guys are changing tires. Usually you just kind of keep on the same set of rubber that you start the race on. So there is no advantage to be gained with having better tires to give you better traction. It's mostly just the clean air advantage.
Yeah, that's it. Track position here more important right now than the state of the car in some strange way. But even still, great racing from these guys. They've been so close to one another all of the time, and they've kept it clean for now, touch wood. Still no pit stop, though, from Dino Filippo. He's probably just enjoying the battle too much, but I'm with you on this one, Austin. I think a cutback right now would be exactly what the doctor ordered. Although, while they are fighting, it's giving John the chance to get further away in front of them. Must go back to the Pro-Am battle as well, by the way. Taylor Lane now leads this class. 12 places gained for him ahead of Chris Long in the CL Simsport machine. No points for guessing what CL stands for. And Errol Urexoit still leads the AM class. He's got over a second now to Stephen Vida, who has dropped behind Jonathan Ouellette as well, is one of the pro drivers coming back through the order.
Yeah, certainly. One thing I want to touch on too is that when these cars do lose their fuel load, they get lighter and lighter, so there's less weight to have to, need to be propelled down the straightaway. So the cars are going to get a little bit lighter. So, you losing those, couple laps of very low fuel isn't too detrimental, but it's obviously something to think about as well. It's also just easier, in my opinion, all the time that, you get down to the end of the race and you just have one pit stop left. It's a lot easier to do that math in your head because you know how many laps you'll need to do. These time races, you have to do 2 cases of math every time you pit, especially when it's the last pit stop, because you don't want to take too much fuel. If you take, an extra couple liters or gallons of fuel on your pit stop, it's going to cost you a couple seconds out on track. And if you lose even 3 seconds and you're, John Bodefer right now, you're going to come out and, have to fight for your life just for a podium. After you gain a second or two, you probably end up just trying to fight for a top 5 with the likes of Bruno down there in 4th. So, there's certainly a lot to be lost, a lot to be gained. As we can see, 2 of our top competitors in the pro category obviously going to split off and come down pit road. So right now, this is honestly best case scenario for Dino and John because they're both kind of in control of their own race. John had the clean air, he wasn't able to pull away right now. But obviously, though, if you're Caden Bin, this race was in your control. You want to follow that leader and make sure you can stay with him to obviously gauge where he is relative to you, because right now Dino's trying to have to push as hard as he can, and that might lead to over pushing the car, because this is the first time he's been the only car out there. Up until this point, he's had kind of other cars to gauge his relative speed off of to know how hard he needs to brake for these corners, or what his mid-corner speed needs to be to prevent him from sort of spinning the car out mid-apex.
Yeah, and that's it. Now he knows that the other guys are in the pits. He knows this is his chance to absolutely go for it, get the hammer down, and there's a bit more pressure on him. That traffic is not going to help him there, though, to be honest with you. I'm trying to see who that was that he was overtaking. It might have been, it's not Jay Steffi, is it? It's the 73 car. I'm pretty sure we saw earlier. Either that or I cannot read.
Michael Johns.
Yes, Michael Johns.
Yeah, it does look like him. He was the one car, if you guys remember, folks at home, going into turn 1. I think another faster car had to take quite the evasive action to make sure there was no collision right there. But yeah, one quick note, a couple of the Pro-Am drivers are currently in pit road. Taylor Lane, Chris Long, and John D. Cooper has followed them in there, the top 3 cars from the Pro-Am category in pit lane, all coming out of it right now. Going to be a battle for the lead.
Oh. Side by side. Oh, it's not the time for Chris to have a blink in and out. Taylor says, nah, I'm having none of that, sunshine. You can have it. I don't want this to be decided by a internet connection based problem. But straight away, this is one of the best things about one-make racing like this, Austin. Straight away, they're out the pits. They're straight back on it. They're just straight back into a fight. It's like they never even pitted.
Right, exactly. It was just a brief intermission. Maybe you get a little bit of a drink of water on the side, or even, maybe eat a chip or two while you wait for your pit stop to be completed. But yeah, these guys are going too wide into the hairpin again. We're going to have to see who's the last of the late breakers.
Well, after my time watching Taylor, I would bet on Taylor, to be honest. He's very, very good on the brakes.
Pretty even there going down to the corner. But yeah, Taylor just going to catch Chris just a bit out there. You can see they're still going to be too wide going into the inner stadium section here. This place is hard enough just for one car, in my opinion. This is the hardest part on the track, and they're going to go ahead and come down here with 2 cars wide almost.
Oh, just about staying Taylor in front. If that's even a sentence in good old Queen's English, but you know what I meant. Either way, fantastic battle in between these guys. Really good fun to watch. I'm just still trying to have a quick go at fixing the graphic issue behind the scenes, but it seems like that is not the case at the moment, unfortunately, everybody. So for now, I think it's probably best to just concede that we won't have the graphics for the race and just focus on the action at hand. There's a bit of smoke and a bit of dust being blown over the circuit over there. I think Andrew Rasmussen has had an issue as he's been off the circuit. Only 4 cars not running currently. Bruno Alcaraz is on his way to Alcatraz by the look of it. He's way off the circuit there as he comes into the stadium section, back on in front of Andrew Hewson in the Twisted Racing blue car. But right now, Dino Filippa is right behind John Botifer once again. So he may have jumped Bruno Carnero, and the Pure Sims cars have had a bit of a switch around. But Caden Bin takes the race lead by 4.7 seconds. He was in the pits for 5 seconds less than Dino Filippa there, Austin. That's incredible.
Yeah, all he did right there is basically underfuel the car just to go ahead and put himself out first to get that clean air. Like you said, Chance, track position is key at these races. So, you're the first car out there. You have all the clean air in the world. You get to decide the pace of this race. So he just underfueled the car a little bit now. He'll have to overfuel it compared to the rest of his competition when they do their final pit stop. So I would look to him to probably make his last pit stop around the 1 hour and 5 minute mark, whereas I think most of his competitors might be able to stretch a little bit further than him, not quite at that 40-minute mark right now. So I think a lot of these guys kind of just showing how far you can go in a tank of fuel. I think, the farthest you can stretch is 35 minutes. Obviously, if you do two 35-minute stints, you're still at 1 hour and 10 minutes. So last pit stop would then happen 5 minutes before the end of the race. And I think all Caden did right there, basically underfuel the car probably for about 5 minutes. So we'll have to see how the strategy plays out for him.
Oh, it might not work out for anybody if anything happens like that there. Bit of contact on the exit of the corner. Caden just having a bit of a tap there with, I think, the number 33 machine, Casey Metzger. That's a very scary moment to have when you're the race leader. Interesting to see if that's caused any lasting damage to that left rear. We've got two Canadian drivers right together here, Spencer March and Justin Rame. This is the number 88 chasing down the 74 machine. Through the stadium section they go, back down towards the Mobile 1 curve, one of the very famous corners of this circuit that still remains after all of these years. It's the corner as it was that they used to come up to when they came out of the forest section. It was almost like you get back to civilization again because you were in the forest for so long on the old circuit. It's a hell of a sight, wasn't it?
Yeah, certainly. One of those corners, it just requires a lot of commitment. That in turn one, they require a ton of commitment because if you do it right, you can obviously use just the perfect amount of runoff, gain a tenth on your competition. But if you do it wrong, you can either go right off the circuit. At that point, you're probably going to lose a couple seconds going off on your adventure, or you just underdo the corner. You don't gain as much time compared to your competition, so you lose a tenth or two. It's a very tricky spot to be in.
It is indeed, mate. It certainly is. Apologies for any brief silence from me. Just trying to sort out the graphics still. I said I wasn't going to try to, but trust me, I'm so determined to do it now that I'm just going to carry on.
Honestly, it's one of those pride things at this point where to say you were able to do it at the point where you're also commentating at the same time, completely understand here. Currently, though, folks at home in the pro category, it's still Caden Bin out front, Dino Felipa in second, John Bodefer in third. That's your podium for that class. The splits between them right now, 4 seconds from Bin to Felipa, and then from Felipa to Bodefer is going to be another half a second between those two cars. And your pro-am category, it's going to be Taylor Lane on the top step of the podium, followed by John D. Cooper. The gap between them is about 0.8 of a second, and then Jeremy Littleton still rounding out your podium. The gap from Cooper to Littleton, obviously second to third at that point, going to be about 5 seconds. In your AM category, it's a little bit more split up compared to the drivers between them. First car is going to be Errol Uriksoy in the top step, followed by Stephen Vata. The gap between those two is about 1.5 seconds at the moment, and Andrew Houston is going to round out your podium. He's about 4 seconds back of Stephen Vata right now. That's your podium in all three of the classes. Battle is still going on all over this track. This is where we get into the meat of the race, where some of the guys in the slower classes, the lower classes start to catch the slower guys in the upper classes, so you kind of get that mixture of, pro versus pro-am and pro-am. Versus the AM category, so it's very tricky to not only race your competition, but also catch and try to pass your, guys you're not racing with, but you still need to get by because they're going to cost you time if you don't.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about the bigger picture that these drivers need to consider as things go on. Apologies for anyone that heard the wonderful Windows notification noise there. I just tried to reset the timing software to make sure that we've got everything we can. And it's
another incident, Don Hunter just getting it a little bit wrong, having to go wide and off track. Fantastic avoidance there. That's going to be the 11 car of Andrew Rasmussen. Just got a little bit wide, the two right-handers right before the start-finish straight. Fantastic avoidance still by Andrew. Always one of those guys, a very heads-up driver.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of these drivers, They have such fantastic awareness, and what they see an incident happening in front of them and something developing, they really, really can just turn something on that just makes them avoid an incident. I really don't get it. Like, I'm absolutely awful at it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm absolutely terrible at avoiding incidents a lot of the time. I'll think to myself, oh, I know exactly where that car's going. Nope, not a chance. Goes completely
Yeah, there's always a
away.
50-50 chance they go left, you go right, and I always choose wrong. That's just sort of how it seems to go, because when you're in the car, it's so hard to figure out, where that is. And like you said, some guys just have it. They can pick it up immediately and just go wherever that car isn't going to be. I know on oval, sometimes on roads, the same thing too. When you see a guy spinning ahead of you, go where he is, because by the time you get there, he won't be. That's usually something that's got me out of a couple jams in certain situations. But yeah, for the most part, it's usually me hitting the car that's spinning.
Yeah, you and me both, mate. Oh, like that. There you go. Two of them doing a pirouette together. That's Jay Steffi. Oh, well, that wasn't accident
more
avoidance,
contact
was
behind
it?
him.
Oh, Stephen Martinez gets absolutely nailed there in the door. I think it was the number 74 car that went into him. Either that or, again, Chaz can't read numbers right. Probably the latter. Jay Steffi was involved in that one. He's got a bit of damage on the car as well now. It's not what you want on a fast section like the Parabolica. It can very quickly go from bad to worse on these cars as well. They are very sensitive to it. We spoke about the mechanical grip earlier on. Here is Dino Filippa now with John Botifer behind him. Bruno Carnero just behind him as well. Lap traffic trying to get out of the way as best it can. It's never the easiest thing, especially around a circuit like this. It's not very wide either.
No, it's a very narrow circuit. You can see right there, 2 cars is relatively easy. You don't want to do 3 cars. When you kind of only barely get 2 cars, it's very, very sketchy to have to pass a car, especially when you have those fast left-right-handers, the chicane section that we can see right here. So you want to catch a guy down the straightaway, get kind of that slipstream. But, of course, if you are the leader of the first car to catch a car, you don't want them to slow you down, but it'd be perfect for you if they slow down the car behind you. So, it's just kind of that rough spot to be in. Of course, if you are the guy in second, you're like, man, if only he could just mess with the guy in first place and then not mess with me so I could catch up. Just kind of that ebb and flow of multi-class racing.
Just looking right now at some of the lap times that we're coming in at the moment. Drivers are about 0.6 of a second off their best times when it comes to the guys at the top of the order. Sean Ryan's gone off again here, mate. He's having a real nightmare at the moment. Look, that looks to me like he's just gone straight on. He can't get it in first gear. There it goes. That's straight on into the stadium section. Needs to be careful with this rejoin, but maybe even more contact with another car.
Yeah, it might be contact with another car, although at that point, I'm not sure if it's contact with another car. It might be a computer lockup, maybe a screen freeze, or maybe possibly an equipment failure. We've had a couple of those in the last season here where the brake pedal just kind of locks up and you go straight on into the corner. Could also just be driver error. It's very hard to get your braking bias just right in this cars, especially your braking points. It's very hard to modulate the brakes as you slow down. These cars don't have it as much, but as you slow down, you go from all the aero grip that you can have in the world to just purely mechanical grip, and at that point there's less force that puts the tires on the brakes and the tires into the road, so you just start to slide as you brake. Of course, these cars not too aero dependent, so you don't have to worry about that, but it is something to consider.
Yeah, it certainly is. Any little bit of damage, anything that can possibly affect the car, you have to carry that with you and think very, very carefully about each and every move that you make, and just try and notice when the car behaves differently. There's the tiny little changes that the car can just sometimes deal with, sometimes not. You know what I mean? It's certain bits of damage the car can live with, and you might just wear the tyre down a little bit more quickly. Other times it might absolutely ruin the car. Is way too deep into the hairpin goes Andrew Hewson. That's car 40 in the AM class. Bruno Alcaraz, we're looking at right now, is in the Pro-Am category. He then gets ahead. He's 5th in class. Taylor Lane still leading that one, as we see here. He's actually made that gap quite a lot bigger by now, actually, hasn't he, Austin?
Yeah, last time we looked, that gap was only about a couple seconds. Right now, yeah, like you said, almost 6 on the dot, so very good job for him to go ahead and just kind of lengthen that gap even more. You can see the car just behind him there. It's going to be the Gulf colors of Jeremy Littleton. That's actually, I believe, I don't know what car was there before. I think it was John Cooper, but I can't remember for sure. But yeah, I believe that was the gap from first to third a couple seconds ago. So that gap was about 5 seconds. So he's made that larger by about a second. But 90% sure there was a car between the two of them.
I will try and see if I can find out who that was. We've just got another car going down the order. Chris Long.
Chris Long is who it was. Chris Long was a driver that was in second place before you. If you remember, they had that fantastic battle coming out of pit road. So looks like he obviously had a bit of a hiccup coming out of one of the corners. And of course, once you heat up the tires in this car, especially the rear ones, it just doesn't grip when you want to. And of course, you overheat the tires, gets the temperature up. The temperature gets hotter. You slide the car more. The more you slide the car, the hotter the tires get. So it's just a very vicious circle. It looks like those hot tires kind of caught him out once, and they were still too overheated for his liking. He spun the car out again. So he was obviously, like I said, second in class, only about 1 second behind the leader, but looks like he just had a little bit of more trouble there on his own. Of course, sometimes that can be contact with another car or having to avoid a wreck, so you kind of just have to spin the car out and hope for the best there. But he was second in class. I believe right now he looks to be 6th or 7th.
Yeah, 7th at the moment, unfortunately, for Chris. He's a driver that's been in the thick of it, though, from the very get-go. We here look at Caden currently leading the race from Dino Filippo. That gap is now down to less than a second. So Dino making some progress right now. 48 minutes, nearly 49 minutes through this race. 1 hour and 15 minutes the total time. So he's still got plenty of time left to actually get this done here. Nearly half an hour as we've got a car off. Andrew Hewson off the road once again. That is in the stadium section after the hairpin. Oh, tries to get back on, excuse me. One way then the other. Needs to be careful. That's the leaders that he's rejoining in front of. Oh, goodness me. That was a very scary moment for John Botafer. He won't be happy with that one. But that's the thing. It's a little bit of a fluster sometimes when you've got all this traffic coming through. You think, well, I've got to get back on at some point. You guys have got to avoid me. But Andrew's car didn't seem in control there.
No, especially not when you're on the outside of the corner there, just trying to get back on the track. That's where these cars go. Like we said, you mentioned earlier at the top of the broadcast, these things are like carts. So you kind of just go into the corner, you will that thing all the way to the outside of the track, as far wide as it can go, track side permitting, before you go ahead and put it in the grass like we saw him do right there. So, at that point, you're spinning out if you go too far. So fine line to do it. You really want to get the car all the way to the outside of the track. But, yeah, you can see the fine line between I need room and how much room are you willing to give me.
Yeah, that's it. Some of the drivers, sometimes you have to rely on the communication between drivers, and it's not always straightforward, is it? Let's put it that way. You can never completely guess what somebody's going to do in front of you. And to be honest, I think that's one of the best things about motorsport. It's not always predictable. And I think that's why we should be grateful for the fact that sim racing is very much the same. We have the same issues that you can have in real world motorsport sometimes. I mean, we have a few more technical side of the things because it's not always real and it's dependent on a lot more hardware, but even still, it's got the same aspects in a lot of ways. That's Jonathan Ouellette, who is currently playing roulette with the wall by the look of it in the bright green car. That thing looks like it's crabbing to me, Austin.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like he's obviously gotten contact with something. You can see when he goes in the straight line here, the rear end is just not quite in line with the front. Certainly a little bit off kicked there. Dog tracking, as we'd say, like he's driving on dirt right now. But looks like he's still got a decent amount of speed in the car, so it looks like he's able to keep going. He might just have that meatball flat for the time being. See if he can bring that car down to pit road and get it fixed for himself here. Like you said, though, time obviously flown by. 53 minutes into this hour and 15-minute race. Do want to touch on, too, the gap between the first two cars. Caden Dino now down to 0.8 of a second. If you're Dino right now, you kind of got to be licking your chops. I don't know if he's caught him by the 4 or 5 seconds that he has, because Caden's been fuel saving. Could be part of his strategy, underfuel the car, save fuel a bit, or if this is just outright pace. It's also impossible to tell how much each of these drivers are pushing right now, but both of them up. Caden's up 7 spots and Dino's up 9 spots as they run right now. So obviously very intense battle. You can see they've still kind of gapped the cars behind them of Botafer and Carnero, those two having an intense battle between themselves. The next car in class behind them is Justin Ream and that number 88 car.
Yeah, there's a number of drivers that are starting to come alive a little bit more now. We keep seeing them closing these gaps and making moves. And then there's a few others that falling by the wayside slightly. It makes you think about the tyres and if they've pushed a little bit hard too too hard early on, and then they're not quite able to keep the tyres operating how they want. The car's a little bit more lively, and then they just can't live with it. We look right now at John Cooper, who is within 3/10 of Jeremy Littleton in front of him. This is for 8th and 9th overall, 2nd and 3rd in the Pro-Am class. Looks like Jeremy's going to do it down the inside. Is he going to be later on the brakes? No, he's not actually. Sorry, John looking down the inside, Jeremy on the outside. Jeremy holding on in the Gulf machine. And there was a bit of a wobble there actually from John on the exit. The car seemed to sort of dance around. It pinched a bit of grip on the front, but all of a sudden he just didn't have a run. It was really strange. That it was like he wanted to put his foot down and the car said no.
Yeah, as we get later and later in this race, one of the things that happens when you are driving these things like karts is, the rear end sliding as much as it does, you're going to wear the tires out faster and faster. We're seeing a lot of these guys able to put the power down on the tighter inside line in the hairpin. For some of these guys, they can still pull it off, but it requires a lot more throttle control, especially coming off of the corner, just to make sure you can put the power down without putting too much of it down and spinning the rear tires. Obviously, spinning isn't winning, so you kind of need to put the power down in the most efficient way possible. You'll see one driver right there able to do it. It's going to be Dino, just barely making the pass on Cade in the hairpin. One of those drivers who still has a lot of rear tires left, just a little bit more skill modulating that throttle pedal.
Fantastic stuff from Dino Filippo. Takes the race lead overall with just over 20 minutes left to go in this race. Now, a lot of championships would have a 20-minute sprint race, to be fair, in these cars. The Porsche Club of Great Britain certainly do. They have races actually even shorter than that some of the time. So still plenty of time left for things to change here between these guys. You can see a little tiny bit of damage, though, on Caden's car there on the front right corner. Maybe just hit a curb a little bit too hard because he made the contact with the lap traffic earlier with the left rear of the car, the opposite corner. So it's definitely not from that. But look at the way that they attack these curbs in this car, the way they use the runoff area as well. Even the reflections on the surface, everything on iRacing right now looking absolutely spot on. Replicating real racing so well in the way they behave and the way that they are to drive. And I always try and explain to people why it is that iRacing is my favourite sim. And the only simple way of saying it that actually makes it even more difficult to explain is just the racing. The racing is the most well replicated bit, you know what I mean? It's not like they've, I can't tell everybody that they've got the most detailed cars or the most detailed tracks or anything like that. Not saying that they don't, but the one thing that they absolutely nail is that the racing is realistic. There's no ridiculous stuff that really goes on unless it's a bit more of a fun server.
Right, exactly. It just comes from this being a motorsport simulator more so than a game. It's not just about having fun in an arcade style. There is a way to turn off all the assists so it's more close to, real life representation of what would actually happen. When they do introduce things in iRacing, it's very hard to introduce them correctly because they want to be as perfect as possible. That's why they always keep developing the tire model. The one day they introduce rain, they're going to have to do a lot more, computational fluid flow dynamics to see how it goes on the track, how it behaves on the cars, how it looks on the cars, where it's going to pool up, and what's going to happen when a tire goes through a puddle. Does it hydroplane? How much does it hydroplane? It's just a difference. You can see, though, Caden Bin coming into the pits right now, like I said, he underfueled the car a little bit, so his competition probably has another 5 to 10 minutes worth of fuel. Caden, though, obviously underfueled to get that track position. Now that he has been passed, there's kind of nothing left for him to do in the race. I think he's kind of comfortably in a top 4 position for sure, so just have to see where he cycles out after the rest of his competition comes into the pits here.
And now this is an interesting point because this isn't about just fill it up and get it to the end now. This is a case of try and be in the box for as little time as possible, put as little fuel as you can. And Caden's actually stopped for 12 seconds there. Bruno Carnero stops for 6.9, so yeah, maybe so. It was Caden that had underfueled earlier, and I'm chatting absolute rubbish, but we see the two of them switch around. Now, I know that the cars have these different coloured highlights on to make them more identifiable, but I'm pretty sure Bruno and Caden have the exact same bright yellow coloured highlights on the car. But either way, the Pure Sims Esports cars looking wonderful. John Cooper and Jeremy Littleton still having their fight further down the order, 8th and 9th, 2nd and 3rd in class. Errol Uricksoy, we've not looked at him for a while, Austin. He's actually 4.5 seconds clear of Stephen Vida. There is the gap as there's a car off the road. But that is the gap now between the AM class leaders.
Yeah, for certain. Obviously, this is just a case of out and out pace, also, but mostly just tire conservation. We get down into the last stages of this race. This is really going to show you who's taking good care of their tires and who hasn't. It's also just about race pace. Some of this too could just be, who's pushing the tires and how much they want to. It could also just be when Stevens caught traffic, they've been in the worst possible place. He's also a little bit more hesitant to pass them just to make sure he can make a clean pass and isn't going to put himself in a weird spot or a bad situation to go ahead and make that pass. Currently, though, Dino out front in the pro category and pro-am. It's still going to be Taylor Lane by now 8 seconds over Jeremy Littleton. The battle between Littleton and Cooper is still going on. The gap between them currently only 0.3 of a second. In the AM category, like you said, it's going to be Urixoy over Vada. Third place currently going to Dan Floria. You can see right now, here's the battle between Littleton and Cooper, still obviously trading places back and forth as they go through the middle stadium section of the track, down to that last final long straightaway before they get into the final chicanes of this circuit.
Now, we just see John Cooper ahead of Jeremy Littleton right now, which, to be fair, it's been a long time coming. I think John will probably sigh, well, a sigh of relief, to be honest, after making that move. Jeremy Littleton in that Gulf-coloured car, the legendary colour scheme, is probably quite happy it's happened as well. Taylor Lane, the class leader, into the pits before them, though. The two of them do carry on. Littleton made a bit of a mistake. Actually, he has come into the pits. He did make a bit of a mistake on the way in. I think he maybe thought, right, now it's time to get in.
Yeah, I think so too. Either that or he just barely misjudged the braking point. Maybe he kind of knew he was outclassed there by his competition. He knew he kind of needed to come into the pit road as soon as possible to kind of make sure he didn't have any of the dirty air just, from riding behind John Cooper there. So he decided to pull into the pits. I'm not sure if he actually came in a little bit too late. It's hard to see where the commitment line is. Sometimes in iRacing, if you run over the painted surface of the track before the pit road entrance, you can get a penalty. I don't believe that is the case, though, because I've seen a lot of drivers kind of take that same entry.
Dino Felipe has taken said entry as well. He's now into the pits from the race lead. Justin Rame is going to go through, so he's going to carry on without pitting this time round. Dave Meneno pitted on lap 29. Currently, Dino Felipe is on his 36th lap, so 7 laps different between the pit stops. Dino's already back out. Wow.
Yeah, well, he only needs to take 15 minutes worth of fuel. He probably had that another one of those 6-second pit stops like we saw from the likes of, I believe, Bruno Carnero also took a 6-second pit stop. So like I said, that's just the difference you have of how much you want to fuel the car and win. We could have also seen these drivers come in and only use 6 seconds worth of fuel on the initial stint. It's not something you really want to do too often because you'll offset yourself too much and you'll be back in the slower guys a lot sooner than everyone else. But obviously there is a strategy, a case made for that, certain race strategy. Yeah, Dino currently up front. I believe he's got a 13-second lead right now.
It's down to, it's 7 seconds now. It was about 13 when he came out, but a lot of the time with our timing, it actually sort of comes down quite a lot once he gets back out on the road. It sort of recalculates itself. But yeah, it's 7.9 seconds now to Bruno Carnero. So Bruno, after overtaking his teammate in the pits, Caden Bean, hoping to get 2 Pure Sims Esports cars on the podium as they come through the Mobile 1 curve again into the stadium section. It's the 74 machine just in front of him, which we saw earlier on in this race. Car 74, Spencer Marsh, another one of the pro drivers as well in the Pacific Sim Motorsport machine. He's not really set the world alight in this race. His fastest lap is a 1:39.7, which is quicker than Justin Rame's fastest lap. However, he's doing 42s at the moment, while the rest of these pro drivers are doing 1-minute 40s.
Yeah, certainly. I think that, kind of just chalks up to, the amount of time that a driver can put in lap by lap basis, and it could just also be, having to pass cars, having to not pass cars, how much you pace yourself, the fuel load in the car. Currently, though, not too many battles happening up and down the field. One of the closest is between Alex Trevor and Taylor Lane, another car in there, as well as Errol Urixoy. Currently, though, he's obviously not in the battle between them because that is a Pro-Am battle. Eric's in an AM category himself. But, tons of battles all the way up and down this field, Chaz.
There certainly is, mate. He's now got 6.3 second lead over second place in the AM category. John Cooper, who was temporarily leading the Pro-Am class, is now in as well. Some of the Pro-Ams breaking into the top 10, which is great to see, but this is definitely going to be Taylor Lane retaking that race lead, because John is there, just stopped in his box, hasn't even got moving yet, and the fiercely forward machine of Taylor Lane is going to carry on going fiercely forward to the top of the class once again. Alex Traber, he's right behind him though, 1.1 seconds here, and this could potentially change in the last few laps, because he's going a good, well actually I say a good bit quicker. He was a 1:43 last time round from Traber, compared to Taylor Lane's 1:41. So I think actually, Alex hasn't pitted yet for the second time. So yeah, ignore me, I'm chatting rubbish. Justin Rame in the pits. I know that.
Well,
much.
it is a lot harder to see when we don't have that constant change of the leaderboard on the left-hand side of the screen. Usually, folks at home, that is something we have. We'll also have a different colored marker right beside each of the driver's numbers that will represent whether they're in the Pro, the Pro-Am, or the AM category. There's also a ticker that displays as well down the left-hand side, inside that one main ticker. The gap between the cars based on a time, so that'll obviously change colors to kind of, tell you to divert your attention to those certain battles, and we'll see them on screen. We'll also have something on screen that shows a picture of the driver, their number, where they're from, certain little tidbits of information, as well as if we're looking at a group of cars, what that is for, and sort of where all those drivers are, relatively speaking, in terms of that battle. So certainly apologize for not getting that to you folks at home today.
Yes, indeed, I second that as well. Did try to do everything I could partway through to make sure that we had said graphics, but unfortunately it is not to be. We'll make sure that it is all sorted for next time. A lot of it is out of our control, unfortunately. It's just down to the servers and things that are in the background to provide said graphics for us, and even for the provider, it's not really anything in their control either, so hopefully...
No, just a bunch of middlemen deciding to do things a certain way. Odds are it is going to help enhance the program further down the road to help provide a more robust service. But unfortunately, as you go in between these changes, it is sort of a holiday week in the Americas, at least for sure, with Thanksgiving coming up. So just a kind of an unfortunate evening to do those sorts of things based on where you are in the world.
Yeah, that's it. Sim racing, very much international. It never sleeps, does it? I mean, right now here in the UK, it is 25 to 3 in the morning in the UK right now where I am. And to be honest, it doesn't feel a minute past 10 p.m. I've been on Rocket League all night. Stephen Vida still leading the AM class then after Errol Urexoy has gone into the pits. So I'm intrigued to see how this comes about at the end. He's just had John Cooper in the Pro-Am class go past him. He's got Jeremy Littleton 4 seconds back in terms of track position, but right behind him on the road is car 77. That's Thomas Marino in red face by JRT. Gorgeous looking car as well. I love an asymmetrical livery on a Porsche. And Thomas, as you'd expect by the classification, would be quicker than the man in front of him, Stephen Vida, but whether he puts up a fight or not is up to him. I suppose he's lapped traffic effectively is Thomas right now, so Stephen doesn't have to let him go really, but I think if the pace difference is that much, he might just let him go by.
Yeah, for certain. One of the, what you really don't want to have happen here is that the car behind you feels like you're slowing him down enough that he tries to make a move on you. It's ill-timed or ill-advised, and he just sort of, makes that move anyways and ruins your race. So would you rather lose 20 seconds by going off course and needing to pit, get some damage repaired, or would you rather just kind of pull over and let that other driver by very quickly to try and lose as little amount of time as possible? And sometimes you just kind of have to weigh those pros and cons in your mind, though. Like I say, though, the asymmetric liveries. A couple of years ago, Porsche had that the Coke livery at I believe Petit Le Mans in America. Many people ran one like that at the real Le Mans, but certainly that Coke livery looking very, very fine on that car.
Yeah, that's it. I'm a humongous fan of a livery. Whenever I commentate on a championship, I always tend to look through the whole field and think, right, which one's my favourite? To be honest, though, at the moment, I must admit,
Middleton for me.
Yeah, you like the Gulf colours?
I do. Yeah, those colours look good on every single car. I do want to ask though, what's yours right now?
We're looking at it, unfortunately, for everybody else. I'm good friends with the guys at Fiercely Forward, and I have always enjoyed their liveries. They have two different teams sometimes. They have Fiercely Forward GSI, which is Gomez Sim Industries, which is one of their sponsors. So they basically have this livery that we look at right now on Taylor Lane's car, which is the matte black and yellow machine with the big lion down the side of it. Gorgeous looking car, very striking, almost like a wasp actually, quite funnily enough. But they have one that's almost what me and my friend Peter Mackay call the cherry cola car, where it's a sort of dark, almost burgundy red. It's a really gorgeous cherry colour, and it really does suit that black as well, especially when it's all matte as well. It's wonderful stuff, absolutely wonderful. But speaking of wonderful stuff, Errol Uriksøy has retaken the lead in the AM class. He's just put another lap on Alex Treber, and well, not lapped him, sorry, he's just overtaken him for overall position. Obviously it doesn't count as anything different for his championship. Stephen Vida 7.8 seconds back now, so with just under, well, I'd say about 7 minutes of this race left to go here, Austin, this is looking quite comfortable for Errol right now, and for our leaders in all classes, really. Dino Filippo, 11 seconds clear now, actually.
Yeah, certainly. You know, when you get down to the deep end of these races, sometimes it just plays out where there are battles throughout the entire thing, or at least it's very close. And other times, some drivers just have bad luck. Sometimes it's pit strategy that plays into their favor, and other times it's just outright raw pace, as you mentioned. You know, that eye-reading split up and down the field. Sometimes it's very indicative. Sometimes it's not very indicative. Of course, right now, today in this scenario, obviously huge leads up and down the field for the leaders in each of these classes, and that's just what you're going to have. The cream's always going to rise to the top. We saw that last season in the RATC, so that's just what you're going to have on these larger races, especially with such, you know, multicultural diverse fields, and these guys having, you know, different backgrounds. In anymore, we don't have different cars, so it does help, you know, sort of tighten the racing up. But obviously, you know, a certain track might suit Dino, or, you know, whereas it does not suit Bruno. So maybe next week, you know, change up the track a little bit. Maybe it suits another driver. Maybe we see Dave Beneno having all the troubles he has today. You know, sometimes the driver just does not always agree with certain tracks. They don't like him either, so you'll have bad luck there. And you'll just, you know, chalk it up to, well, I dislike the track, it's just a bad track for me. You know, maybe you go to Le Mans next week and you have a great time there.
Yeah, that's it. You know, things can change very quickly in a championship like this. We all have tracks that we enjoy, tracks that we don't. And personally, I always find that the tracks that I don't actually enjoy racing at are the ones where I randomly go well. I don't know what it is, but I've heard a few drivers with similar situations where you think, oh, great, we're at so-and-so circuit next week. I really don't look forward to that one. And then you'll get the best result of your season. As Caden Bin has a bit of a moment over the grass there into the final sight. So you can see a lot of understeer coming from some of these guys right now. Quite a lot of drivers starting to run wide, really overdo the track limits slightly. I think maybe a bit of fatigue setting in. Obviously, it's not that tiring a race for the drivers, but, you know, it's quite a long time to be focusing as hard as you have to in a car like this. This is for position right now, by the way. Eric Kaluga and Stephen Vida, 0.6 of a second between them. This is for second and third in the AM class. We have less than 5 minutes to go here, Austin, so time certainly flies when you're having fun, I'd say.
Yeah, for certain. You know, Eric is one of the best overtakers in the league. You know, we saw him obviously march in the back of the field to the front. He gridded up in 35th position. Right now he's climbed all the way up to 14th. The driver he's fighting with ahead of him, Stephen Vada, he actually gridded up 23rd. So it's a 12-car difference between the two of them where they started, but of course only separated by one position right now. Eric Galaga, you know, one of the best passers, like I said. So currently, you know, I look for him to make the move in the next couple laps here, but time's ticking down for him. He's only got a couple minutes left to make it happen.
Well, he's already got it done at the hairpin, actually, just as we quickly looked at Caden and Bruno getting close together there. He's done it, but straight back at him. Send it down the inside to Stephen. Absolutely brilliant stuff into the stadium section there. Stephen gets it late on the brakes, puts the car down the inside, secures the move. But now, what can Eric do to come back at him? Like you said, Austin, one of the very best overtakers in the league. Very patriotic livery as well in the Vulture Motorsports car. Oh, Bruno's gone off. Bruno's pulled over.
We are from second place. Either he went off, maybe he might have underfueled the car. No, he's manually disconnected. I think either he went off or he had to quit. Might have also had an equipment failure. We're going to ride on board with him right now, though.
For some reason, it's not playing at full speed, although the graphics have just kicked into life. Let's have a look. Oh, he's done a Vettel. He's done a Vettel.
Yep.
He's put it in the wall. reason, we do suddenly have graphics for, well, we have the replays anyway, so that's at least working, but for some reason we just don't have any other graphics. Or do...
They're back finally. You can see, folks, as I was talking about, different colors denoting which class the drivers are. If they're white, they're in the Pro category. Blue is Pro-Am, and red is the Am category. You can also see now a little bit easier who is on the top, so fantastic to have these back just in the nick of time.
You want to know why they weren't showing up?
Why is that?
Because Chaz hadn't clicked race, which basically we have a lot of different display modes on our overlays. So we can have race, we can have empty, we can have race info. I just hadn't clicked race, so they were never going to show up.
Really? So you reckon we could have had these the entire time, or when you tried to fix it the first or second time?
The first time I tried to fix it, they could have shown up, but no.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, there's a time to be truthful, and there's a time to maybe cover up the truth. Maybe not lie, just don't tell the whole truth.
Oh no, I'll always hold my hand up and admit when I've made a mistake. I must admit as well, Dan Handover has done a wonderful job at making this overlay look so stunning. But sorry about that, everybody. But Chaz is an idiot. There you go. There's your answer. Anyway, we currently have this man, Dino Filippo, leading the way. Caden Bean, second place. As you see, last time he hit one of the timing beams, 13.5 seconds. He was then 2 seconds ahead of Botifer. Leading the Pro-Am class at the moment, it's Taylor Lane, then it's Cooper and Littleton. And then Urexoy inside the top 10, which is great stuff at the moment, to be fair. He is doing a smashing job and continues to be in the top 10 overall, despite being in what we'll call the lowest class.
Yeah, for certain, one of the best drivers in the field at passing. He's also an incredibly consistent driver. I think I've only ever seen Errol make a single mistake, and I believe it was just like missing an apex once. Very, very consistent driver, very fast, extremely good at passing. One of the best all around in the entire field. So you can see this is just kind of how the drivers split as we get later and later on in the race. And sometimes you can see some of the pro drivers, the Pro-Am drivers getting passed by the Am drivers, based on either pure pace, or sometimes it's just a bad turn of luck. You can get involved in an accident with another car, and your car is suddenly 3 or 5/10 of a second slower per lap, and the pace difference just isn't large enough for you to make that up based on pure talent alone and the different classes. But yeah, right now Kalaga currently second in the Am category, so he did end up passing Stephen Vaha and pulling away by certainly a very decent amount here as we get into the last couple minutes of this race. Should get the white flag. Yep, Dino has gotten the white flag this time by, so 1 lap to go.
Barney dusting off that white flag once again. You can see the gap on the left-hand side now between everybody. Everyone up to 9th place on the lead lap at the moment. So Filippo doing a fantastic job here. 13.8 seconds clear of Caden Bin in the Pure Sims Esports car. Absolutely gutted for Bruno Carnero after that incident earlier on. Just shows you how easy it is to do no matter how quick you are. But it looks like we're going to get 3 very deserving winners here in each of these classes, Austin. It's been a phenomenal drive by each and every one of them. And to be honest, this has shown me especially, I'm pretty sure you'll agree, that this is very, very tough to race for this long in this car.
Yeah, certainly. You did say, you don't expect fatigue to become part of this, but these cars move around so often, you're really having a fight with the wheel the entire time. And of course, when it is this hard to control your pedal inputs, I always find my knees start to get a bit sore at the end of these longer races, especially driving cars like this where you have to modulate both pedals quite often. So it is quite a physically demanding race, and this track is one of them. A lot of hard braking corners, a lot of areas where you kind of have to, like you said, in a car, wheel the car out to the outside of the track, and that's a lot of back and forth sawing movement on the wheels. So it's not easy to drive these cars. This track is not easy to drive on either, especially not for the 1.25 hour race time that we have. But of course, Dino Filippo going to come home and take the checkered flag, Jazz.
He is indeed round the final corner, and to start his campaign in the best way possible, Dino Filippo takes the win for Oris Racing. Absolutely dominant performance in the latter stages there. Great stuff from Pure Sims Esports as well. Caden Bin, it could have been 2 cars on the podium, but unfortunately Bruno put it in the wall. He just beats John Botifer home and across the line. Great stuff from him. Errol Urexoy has crossed the line to win the Am category as well, I must add. Eric Kulaga is going to be around the final corner as well. He's going to get the line crossed, and he's going to be second in class. Stephen Vida is going to be third in there as well. And then we will go a bit further back around the lap. Oh, there's a car going very slowly around the final corner there. We'll go back around the lap to have a look for Taylor Lane, because this guy is about to take the win in the Pro-Am category as well. It's been a very hard-fought race for him, but to be honest, we saw him climb through the order very well, didn't we, Austin? It's been really well-deserved, this.
Yes, sir, we did. Obviously started very deep into the field compared to his competitors. They all did. Both Lane and Cooper started 19th. Cooper started 18th. Obviously, they're both going to finish 7th and 8th overall. Jeremy Littleton started 12th. He's going to finish 9th overall. So all these drivers really having a fight up through the field. But, of course, what a race for Taylor, like you said.
Yeah, and you can see how much it means to him, weaving and weaving and weaving across the line. Some of the guys earlier described him as the unluckiest man in sim racing, and I must admit, I've never seen Taylor have any good luck at all. John Cooper's going to bring it home in second place. He was always in the thick of it, so well done to John for Turnburn Moto. They're very garish livery. And just in the background, there it is. There's Austin's favourite Gulf Porsche in the GHJC Aerosports car, crossing the line and finishing in 9th place overall, 3rd in his class. Well, a very, very interesting race indeed. Plenty going on throughout that one, and we will take a look at the race results right now for you. We'll go overall so you can see just about everybody and how it came out. Dino Filippa takes the race win, nearly 15 seconds clear of Caden Bin, with John Botifer in 3rd. Then it's Justin Rain ahead of Dave Meneno. Jonathan Ouellette is in 6th place, the last of the pro drivers in the top 20. Then it's Taylor Lane taking the win in Pro-Am ahead of John Cooper and Jeremy Littleton. 10th place overall, Errol Urexoy takes the win in Am. Then it's Eric Kulaga, ahead of Stephen Vida. Then it's Daniel Florea ahead of Casey Metzger. 2 more Pro-Am drivers, Bruno Alcaraz and Jay Steffi. Then we have Michael Kulaga, I keep getting that name wrong, and Andrew Hewson just behind. 19th place was Alex Traber, and Gary Brown rounds out your top 20, 2 laps down.
Drew Neubauer is going to go ahead and bring his Team Premet car home in 21st, followed by Spencer Marsh in 22nd. Should be our second to last pro driver. Eric Stamp's going to come home in 23rd, and Chris Long's going to come home in 24th. Michael Johns is going to finish 25th, followed by Paul Perry in 26th. Bruno Carreno going to be 27th, followed by Don Hunter in 28th. 29th is going to be Thomas Marino, followed by Andrew Rasmussen in 30th. Sean Ryan going to come home 31st, followed by Dean Timms in 32nd. 33rd is going to be Steven Martinez, followed by Harry Wills in 34th. Andrew Hewitt's going to come home 35th, followed by Travis Kepler in 36th, and Jason Bridges in 37th.
And that was your order, everybody. You can see a number of them there, unfortunately not making it to the flag by the end. And hopefully we will have some interviews in just a moment, so Austin will be able to have a chat with some drivers, see how they felt their race went. But it was a race that had a bit of everything, to be fair, wasn't it? There was so many people having problems and so many drivers falling off near the end of the race. I mean, we see here a problem for Sean Ryan. He was in the walls a little bit as that race went on. But others, to be honest, had a really, really good time of it. And one of them, who will join us right now, was Errol Urexoy, who I will leave in the very capable hands of Austin Belkey.
Hey Errol, it's Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, man. Obviously not as good as you. Fantastic job in that race. Going to go ahead and bring home the victory in the AM category. Obviously not an easy task for you today. You had to pass a lot of cars to do that. First off, tell me about your race, man.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I had to take it easy at first, let those tires come up to temperature and save them because the tire deck in practice has just been horrendous. So I was lucky that Steve kind of got in front of me there, and I just kind of sat behind him for a few laps and picked my moment when I felt like I had enough tires and fuel, and it just worked out.
Yeah, certainly you talked about having to be patient and lucky that Steve got in front of you. When did you finally feel like you had enough either pace in the car or tires saved up? And did you kind of know, is it easy to tell, your tire deck difference compared to other drivers in these cars?
Yeah, and in the Porsche, in the Cup car especially, you can feel when it settles in. Like I feel when those tires come up to temperature, the car just wants to kind of glide through the turns. And so once you feel that, it's game on. And that was when I started. I can't remember what lap it was, but as soon as I started feeling myself come out of, gosh, I don't know what the turn number is, but through the arena and then back out onto the big long straight. As soon as I felt the car settle in on that turn, I knew it was go time. And so that was when I started trying to set him up for the move. And he didn't make it easy. He's a good driver, so I'm looking forward to racing him some more this season.
Yeah, for sure. Well, congratulations on your victory here. Is there anyone you want to thank for riding along on your race car today?
Definitely got to say big thanks to my wife for letting me do this every week. And big thanks to the team, to Twisted and Harry and all them. And they give me a lot of support and help me get myself ready. And Dan, my driving coach. So, yeah, that's it.
For sure. Well, thank you again so much for your time. Once again, congratulations. That was Errol Uriksoy, winner in the AM category. Another driver from the AM category is going to be Eric Kulaga. Eric, mentioned it on the broadcast, one of the best passers in the league. Walk us through that race, man.
Passers? I don't know what you guys are looking at. I pass people when they wreck. I don't know how many on-track moves I make. No, yeah, coming from the back, it was fun today. It was I wasn't sure what to expect. This car is not. Just looking used to it a little bit, and it worked out for me. It's just coming through the pack and making the right moves. I did a couple of strategy on pit. I did a little undercut a couple times to get out in better track position, and worked out. Got second. Errol was really fast. Congrats to him. Good race. It was a fun race.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned, you pass a lot of cars when they wreck, but obviously attrition is just, one of the things of these races, especially at certain tracks. These cars are a lot more difficult to drive, it seems like. Do you feel like they're a little bit easier or more difficult than the GT3s we used to drive on the Wednesday nights?
I think the thing I noticed at the end of this race especially was the amount of lockups at the end on that last stint. Everybody in front of me is locking up. They're going off. They're slowing down. There's a lot of guys just pulling over, letting people by because they couldn't. I think they're running out of tires, and I had 38% left on my left front, so I was running out of tires too. But yeah, it's part of the game. You got to manage the fuel, the tires, and get the car at the end, and that's the big thing. Keep it clean, and you'll finish better than a guy who's faster who can't.
Yeah, for certain. Eric, is there anyone you want to thank for being on your race car today?
Oh, it's good for you guys. It's good to have you guys back on with us, and Harry for putting this lead together really quickly. It's fun. It's good to to continue to hide from our families, waiting for the next GT3 season in January. So we're all very excited to have an extra day here. But yeah, thank you guys, and thank my teammates Steve and Mike. Yeah, it was a fun run today. It was really fun. It's a new car, no traction control, no ABS. It's a different thing. It's more fun. It's a little more old school like us.
Yeah, for certain, brother. Well, once again, congratulations on that medal step on the podium. That was Eric Kulaga, who finished second in the Pro-Am category. In the Am category, excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Chaz, who is going to talk to Taylor.
Yes, indeed. A good old mate of mine, Taylor Lane. We've been racing together on iRacing since I very, very first got onto the service. Taylor, obviously, you just put in the YouTube chat as well. That was awesome, and well, I can imagine that you're very happy right now because you are the unluckiest person in sim racing. But to get a class win, first round of the season, what a way to start the campaign!
Yeah, what a way to start. I was not expecting that. Came in today with very little practice. I've been taking a little bit of a break from iRacing, so I haven't had much practice. But yeah, you really could not start the season any better than that. That was this car is tough.
Yeah, it certainly looks it. We were talking about the body language of how this car moves around earlier on as well. And do you feel that when you're driving it, or does it feel more like it floats around? Because, to be honest, I've contradicted myself and said both this evening. But on the outside, when you're hitting curbs and you're chucking it into a corner, it shows us what it's doing. It communicates a lot on the outside. Is it like that behind the wheel?
It might do for other people. I find it's quite the opposite. It feels quite like a numb car to me. I actually I struggle quite a lot with feeling the balance of the car and where the grip is, and I actually find myself losing the rear quite a lot with this car with very little throttle input. So it's very much just pure luck. I think this car, it's very difficult to get right.
And what did you make of the circuit as well? I mean, it's not quite the Hockenheim that we all want it to be, obviously, with the old school circuit going through into the forest and over 200 miles an hour in Formula 1 cars, but it's still a hell of a fantastic racetrack, isn't it? You get epic racing here.
Yeah, it's still it's a brilliant track to race at, no matter what category it's in. But it is unfortunate that we don't get to blast through the forest like we used to.
Yeah, I somehow hope that one day that is revived via iRacing or other sims as well. Of course, other sims are available, but we're not going to get into that too much. Taylor, it's great to see you get that win, mate. Of course, you know the question by now with the amount of interviews we've done over the years. Is there anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to while we've got you?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to you guys for putting on an absolutely brilliant broadcast.
Thank you.
Shout out to Harry and the guys for running amazing leagues. It's brilliant what they've done over the last few years with all the leagues they've done. Shout out to my team, Fisley Forwards, Ollie, the boss, people should probably know. Shout out to Gomez Sim Industries, our title sponsor, Porsche Sport, and Infinite setup providers, IRS.
Thank you very much, mate. Well, great to speak to you as always, Taylor. Well done, mate, and I hope the campaign, let's get it right, continues to go just as well for you, buddy. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, bud.
Well, there we go then, Austin. End of our evening, end of the first race of the season, and that really does set a very good example for what we can expect for the rest of the season. That was great fun.
Yeah, for sure. I expect to see a lot more close battles, especially as these drivers sort of try to figure out the cars more and more to make sure they can understand what's going to happen. Sort of go back on what Eric said. I feel like this is going to be a fantastic season, Chaz.
Well, it's been an absolute joy to share the box with you, Austin. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for everybody who has joined us as well. And, of course, to the series partners, Race Anywhere, Sim3D, Go for the Gap. And this has been the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup US Series. Austin and I, or potentially our other broadcasters, Mike Yao as well, will be back with you for the next round. But for now, everybody, thank you very much for watching. We will see you again very, very soon. Good night.